Alright guys, welcome back. We are watching Koyomimonogatari episode 10, Koyomi Seed. Last time, Shinobu episode, talked about donuts, talked about a Taurus. I learned what a Taurus is. Um, Love. It was about love. It was a good one. This one seems like, as I predicted, kind of is obvious, right? It's about Ononoki. Cool. What's up with Ononoki? Kiyomi Seed is also an interesting, like that is another title that feels like kind of unique to me compared to the other ones, you know? Like a seed has there's a lot of like, makes you think about like growth and change and all that kind of stuff, right? That's there's a lot to the idea of a seed, I suppose. This one should be what month? This one should be in January, right? I guess we're almost caught up. We're almost caught up to like the furthest we've seen, which is Ski Monogatari, right? Because that was Valentine's Day. So we are almost there. I guess the last episode will be in March, so it will be firmly after everything we have seen. So excited for that, I suppose. I'm also just worried because of Aragi's like mental state, I guess. Um, but anyway, I guess like always, we're in the chapter one, and then we will watch the episode. So let's get into it. I wonder if Yatsugi Ononoki even makes a distinction between roads and everything else. I consistently have my doubts. She's bound by neither the forces of gravity, nor buoyancy, nor lift. The creatures known as human beings, who are always bustling around her, generally propel themselves by alternately moving one leg and then the other, and I can't help but think that Yatsugi Ononoki is simply emulating them when she does so herself. At present, the human race just so happens to have adopted preambulation as its primary form of locomotion, and she's just imitating them, no deeper meaning or consideration involved. If, for instance, crawling were to become the latest trend in human propulsion, Yatsugi Ononoki would probably start crawling around without a second thought. According with reason holds no meaning for her. It's adapting to reality that's much more meaningful. And that adaptation to reality is itself an absolutely goal-oriented way of life for a Shikigami like Yatsugi Ononoki. Then again, since she's an aberration who doesn't possess a life force and can't be said to have a way of life in the first place, and is in fact relentlessly pursuing a goal she can never achieve, maybe it's more like a meaningless way of punishing herself. For me, the safest way of travel isn't walking along the ground or soaring through the sky. It's probably burrowing through the earth. Sometime or other. Interesting. When I was going along, being taken along, on a high altitude trip fueled by her unlimited rulebook, it's really up to the observer whether to consider that mode of travel jumping or flying. She suddenly started explaining this to me, in a monotone that sounded like a failed impersonation, lacking intonation or even context. Tunneling through the earth like a mole, I think that's probably the safest way for me to travel. Unless she was just making a groundless joke about being underground versus going underground, I couldn't even guess at what she was trying to say. Safe. Sure, being underground is probably safe. Especially for someone like her, someone for whom battle is inevitable, an indispensable safety might well be found there. There, beneath the earth. She might find a safety that the surface doesn't afford her. After all, in that kind of hermetically sealed environment, there's no fear of a surprise attack, even from above. Given the lack of obstructions in the sky, aerial movement naturally allows for the greatest velocity, but a lack of obstructions also means a lack of potential cover. Which is why Yatsugi Ononoki said that subterranean travel was the safest. Or so I thought, but she just quietly shook her head at my interpretation. She shook her head expressionlessly, and said in a monotone, "No, it's because there are no people around. No people around. There was no one for her to imitate, hence no one to be influenced by. It was the one place she could really be herself." God. Okay. Interesting. Huh. Okay, let's watch the episode. Okay, so we are watching Koyomimonogatari episode 10, Koyomi Seed. You can line your own copy up with this if you want to. We are starting in 3, 2, 1. I can finally watch the opening again. I like this opening a lot. It's good. Hmm. Ononoki to me is still a character that I don't know. I get that just sums it up. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. The way Aragi views her is very interesting. The way she views herself, too. Except, like, how does she even view herself? I just don't even know. She... She certainly doesn't think of herself as alive, or as a human, or, you know, all of that stuff. She thinks of herself as a monster in some sense. Which is weird. I just don't... Ah, God. I don't know. I don't know. Hmm. I don't know. We're gonna have to... We're gonna figure it all out. That's for sure. That's what we're gonna do. Koyomi Seed. January. Indeed. Okay. Right, right. Oh god, I forgot about this. Really, really following him around, huh? Is that his goal? That's true. That would be very scary. Oh, interesting. Very... Huh. What's up? She really wants attention. I guess. Oh, right. Of course. Should have known. I mean, isn't that obvious? Like, God. Yeah, how did he not know that? God, come on. I knew immediately. Of course. Oh, God. Really gotta study, huh? I... He's... So, whoa. Whoa. He's been doing his best. Thank you. Thank you. Sure, an effective strategy, most likely. Hmm. You know, Kaiki is in town right now, right? This is during Hitagi ends. Well, what is that? All we know is it's not in this area. That doesn't really help, right? Okay. Great. That's really... Wow, this will be an effective search, I imagine. Ooh. You'll know it when you see it, huh? We've had something like that before, right? Interesting. I guess. I guess. I mean, you can fly, though, right? You can fly up into the air. Yeah, not by much. Yeah, you're shorter than your sister. God, Aragi doesn't know he's sitting in the same seat that Kaiki was sitting in. I suppose. He has to carry her around. That's, I guess. Okay. Interesting. Sure, sure. She has to stand on his head, like Haganui. Okay. Oh god. How does he... How is he doing this? How does he balance up there, huh? Oh god. This is terrifying. Probably, maybe. Hopefully. Ooh. He's aware of it. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. What? What is she doing? You're wandering around right now. Yeah, come on. Oh, true. Like 2 months, right? Yeah. And then you die. Indeed. Suffering useless defeats. It might be useless. I don't know. I don't know. Sure. Yeah, I mean, she already knows the situation, of course. So he thinks he doesn't deserve it, I guess? Yeah. God. Because, oh, seeds. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Ooh, as if something is keeping the balance. Interesting. Yeah, yeah. That's going too far into the... Sure. Hmm. Could be anything, right? Could be anything. Oh, that illusion where it looks like it's spinning like either way. Right. What would that be? What would that be to you? Hmm. Ooh. Wings. Flying. A smile. A smile. Interesting. You lose sight of it? Okay. Huh. Huh. Okay. Okay. Huh. Interesting. Oh, this is after Monogatari. The hardest thing to look for. What would be the hardest thing to look for? That's a hard question. Alright, he's gonna say something stupid. He's gonna say something dumb. I don't know. Okay, okay. Sure. Okay. The easiest thing to find. Oh, well, I don't know about that. Yeah. It certainly seems like it, right? Of course. Yeah, sure, sure. I guess that's the hardest thing to find. Sure. The easiest thing to find. Ooh, sure. Something that's gonna find you, right, is the easiest thing to find. Sure, sure. And what a good way to be conspicuous. Yeah, yeah. How did Hanakawa get from a hot spring to a jungle in immediately? Interesting. Oh, oh, it was for Kaiki. I see. Okay. Okay. Interesting. How does he feel about that, though? Indeed. Yeah, yeah. But it's like you would think, making you stand out. Interesting. Yeah. Oh yeah, she is here now. Right. Sure. Oh, God. I guess. Such a negative way to look at it. Such a negative way to think about it. Everyone is supported by things. Indeed. Yeah. Yeah, of course. It's absolutely impossible. I suppose. You certainly do. Love this music so much. Huh. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Man, I don't know. That's a good episode. That was a very sweet episode. I gotta think. I gotta think about that chapter one. I gotta think about Ononoki. That's for sure. I just don't believe her. I don't believe her. I don't believe Araragi that she has like no feelings and that she's that she's this monster. Like obviously, right? She isn't, right? But I guess the question is, what does it mean to be a monster? What does it mean to not be human? I guess that's the whole question, right? By definition, right? Like literally, Ononoki isn't human, sure, right? God, all this stuff about imitation, right? I think that is something that I have ignored in like the way I've analyzed Ononoki and Araragi and like the way he views her for a while when I shouldn't, because I think the idea of just imitating um other people around you and all of that. I think that is something that is a very important thing that Aragi is thinking about, right? Thinking about like whether or not he's really changed, who he even really is, or if he's just imitating, if he's just you know what I mean? Like okay, okay. Talk about the episode in the discussion. Okay, let's talk about the episode. I had to do some serious thinking about this one, but I think I have many things to discuss. So Ononoki. Ononoki. What is up with Ononoki? On this channel for the past, I don't know, ever since Ononoki was introduced into the story, we have had some struggle about what she like is in the story, right? Like what is the place that she occupies in Aragi's mind? How does he view her? And like what does that say about him? What does that say about her? All of this, right? This chapter one to this episode, I think illuminates a lot of that. At least in a way, it kind of does, right? The first lines of the chapter one, right, are Araragi saying all this stuff about Ononoki having no like boundaries, right? She's not bound by anything, right? Not bound by gravity, buoyancy, lift. That she's able to do anything, basically, right? Which one isn't true. It kind of is. She has unlimited rulebook, so I suppose that God, this all makes me think of unlimited rulebook in a different way. But so what's the important thing about that, right? Aragi views Ononoki as someone who's not human, right? She's a monster, whatever that even means. She's uh she like imitates humans, right? That's how he thinks of it, right? She emulates humans. It makes me think of the first scene of like Ski Monogatari when he was talking to Shinobu about all of that and how it's different than trying to be human. She's just simply emulating humanity, right? And Aragi says that's like not having any bounds on you at all, any binds on you at all, right? You're not limited by anything, which is a very interesting way to view like that idea of humanity, right? Humanity for Aragi has always been such an important like concept, just conceptually, right? As a whatever humanity means to him, which is a whole bunch of stuff. It's very important, right? So him saying that Ononoki not having that is this thing that allows her to have like unlimited ability to do anything. It's very interesting. It's like the road, right? It's like the idea of a road. How a road is a road if you have to walk on the road to like live your life, right? A road is something that limits you, right? That's the only place you're allowed to walk, right? You got to stay on the road, right? There's I don't know, cliffs on either side of it for Aragi, right? So he wants to make sure he's on the right path because he can't just easily go anywhere he wants, right? The two characters who, through Aragi's questions here, have had interesting answers that like involve them ignoring the roads are Ononoki, when she says in this chapter 1 that she like burrows, right? It'd be subterranean travel, going under the road, right? And go wherever you want, right? And Skihi, who said that she like flies above the road, right? She can go anywhere she wants as well because she flies above it, right? Ononoki and Skihi are very similar characters, right? They're both oddities. They're both immortal. They're both. There's like the shared thing between them in Skihi Phoenix, where Skihi is like a member of the Araki family, and the whole like conflict of that arc was the struggle to like accept Skihi as part of the family for Aragi, despite her being like an oddity, or rather the lack thereof, right? His immediate ability to accept her, right? And like Ononoki, how uh despite all these similarities between Ononoki and Skihi, right, just like literally like what they are, Kagami is able to accept Ononoki as like her buddy, right? I just think that's interesting, right? They're similar characters in that way, right? And it shows through the way that they both have the similar answers to this question about the road, right? Um, so the other thing between them is that Ononoki changes a lot, but she only changes, according to Aragi, at least, in this way of like imitating people around her, right? Whatever this core idea of what she really is, whoever Ononoki really is something that at least Aragi thinks he like doesn't know, right? That she it's like this great unknown inside of her, I suppose. Uh Makes me think, God, stupidly enough, it makes me think of the stupid scene where he's like pulling up her dress because he wants to see what her panties look like, right? It makes me think of that. It literally makes me think of that. How he wants to know like what she like really is, I guess, right? And we as the viewer, we don't get to see it either, right? Aragi does, I suppose, but like, since we don't get to see it, I think that's interesting. Um, he imagines that there's this like real version of her almost, right? And she's imitating people around her, right? That her behavior changes with all the people around her, all of this. For Skihi, which had a similar answer to the road, all of that. The thing about Skihi that's interesting is we always get like mentions of how Skihi is like unable to change, right? That Skihi is like this, that's like what immortality is, right? It's supposed to be this inability to change, inability to adapt, inability to do all of these things, right? And I guess it's true in a sense that Skihi is a character that feels like she hasn't, yeah, she certainly hasn't changed much. She hasn't really had an arc to change as a character in any way, right? Certainly feels like it's just been the same Skihi the whole time, right? But it's interesting. It's interesting because you would think the ability to ignore the road, the ability to do whatever you would want, right? The ability to, like, in your life, I guess, right? If that's what ignoring the road is, to make your own decisions and go wherever you want to go by yourself, right? You would think then that Ononoki and Skihi, in terms of this relation to like their ability to change, would be more similar, right? But they seem so different, right? Ononoki herself, the way she views herself too, is so interesting. But Ononoki herself, like, I guess it's just how you view it. Has she changed as a character over the course of the story? Has she changed at all? Unlike the surface, she has, right? She says yay instead of the pose look thing, right? Sure. She certainly acts differently with different people around, but who doesn't, right? Who doesn't? That's just how life works, right? She burrows through the earth. What? So, the important question between the two answers that Ononoki gave and that Skihi gave, both of them resulting in like ignoring the road, being able to take a different path, right? And Ononoki herself says it, right? For me, the safest way to travel isn't walking along the ground or soaring through the sky. That was Kihi's answer. It's probably burrowing through the earth, right? The difference, as they say at the end of the chapter, or at least the difference that Araragi thinks of, is the people around, right? Skihi flying through the air, like the phoenix, right, above the road, that would be similar to like what was happening to Araragi in this episode, right? Being held up in the air, right? It's very obvious. It's very obvious to see her, right? Skihi, when she's flying above the, she stands out, right? You can see her, right? It's almost like what Skihi isn't buried at all, right? She remains fully herself, right? As Skihi, unchanged, because she's soaring above the sky, right? And everyone sees her, right? She's very like noticeable in that way, right? Whatever Skihi herself like is. For Ononoki, she burrows through the earth, right? So she becomes hidden. There's no people around to see her. Aragi views that in his mind as her being able to be herself because there's no people around, which is obviously such an Aragi way to view it, right? Of course, he thinks people are change, which in a way they are, and Ononoki burying herself in the earth like that allows her to remain to be herself, right? Allows her, if there's no one around, then she's herself, right? Which is such a like in that sense, Ononoki perfectly embodies Araragi's thing about humanity and being a monster and all of that, right? Like entirely, perfectly embodies it, right? Um, she, from his point of view, the way he views her, and kind of the way she views herself too, is entirely like, yeah, that she really does allow herself to be entirely changed and influenced by the people around her completely, right? And whoever she really is can only be seen when she is completely alone, right? When she's burrowed within the earth, hidden from sight entirely, right? But my problem with that interpretation is just it's Araragi thinking that, right? Ononoki doesn't say that. Ononoki says Ononoki says it's because there's no people around, and that's why, right? But it's Araragi that thinks there's no one for her to imitate, no one to be influenced by. It's the one place she can really be herself. Is that how she really thinks of it? Is that just an Araragiism, right? Is that just a I don't know. I don't know. Because I guess we do know that Ononoki thinks of herself as a monster. We know that she has this way of viewing herself that is, what do you even call it, negative? She doesn't view herself as alive. She doesn't view herself as having a life the same way as other people do, right? And yet she seems so much like a person, right? She seems so alive. She seems so real? So I don't know. I don't know. What else does it mean? Oh, yeah, and then just the unlimited rulebook stuff too, right? Aragi thinks about it in this episode too. I guess the unlimited rulebook is kind of like that too, right? It's representative of like this power that she has to be unbound by all of these things because rather than allowing herself to be changed by the people around her, I guess this is the important thing that's maybe important for Aragi too. She just imitates. She adapts, right? She willingly like changes her behavior, but this real version of herself only exists when she's burrowed underground, not around anyone else, right? How like what does that say about Araragi and like his capacity to change and like the way he views the change on him, right? It makes me think about how, which we talk about in this episode, him like studying for college, right? Him trying to get into college so he can like be with Shinjagahara, all of that, right? That came from a conversation he had with Shinjagahara in Bake, where like they're talking about their future, right? Araragi, of course, said he had nothing to say because he was suicidal, right? Um, and he kind of only landed on like this new motivation to go to college and be with Shinjagahara, all of this because of her, right? Because of Shinjagahara, right? And of course, that's just how it works, right? Your future in life and where you want to go in life, of course, is influenced by people around you and people you're connected to and people you care about. But I wonder how Aragi actually views it. Does he view this? Does he view wanting to go to college, the path that he's on in life in general, right? Which college and all of that kind of certainly is. They mention it in this episode with Ononoki saying, like, well, what have you been for the past year, right? He's certainly been on this path for like a year, basically. Um, does he view it as a path that he has at all decided for himself? Does he view it as like a thing that he like himself is being changed by and doing? Or does he view it like how he views Ononoki in terms of this like imitation and adaptation, all of this, right? That he is just that he's just going along with what the people around him are like making him do almost, which is such a negative way to think about it, that in some way the only reason he wants to go to college, the only reason he wants to be with Senjukahara, all of this is because she wanted to, right? And then he's just going along with it. It's almost like I could imagine Araragi wanting to think of it in that way because because of course it'd be such a nice thing for him. He has this whole thing about humanity and all of this. If he could tell himself that core humanity within him still exists, this idea of himself unchanged by other people around him, then I would think he would want to be able to think that. But I don't know. I don't know if he does think of it like that, right? It's just a possibility. Because I guess because that's kind of the thing is if he doesn't think of it like that, kind of the step to not think of it like that is to be able to like accept the change that has been done to him, which is kind of like the whole story. That's kind of like the whole thing, right? Is he has to be able to accept himself as Aragi still and accept the change that has happened to him over the course of the story, and he's certainly not there yet, right? He's definitely not there yet. Hmm. So to sum it up, Ononoki, as we've said a million times, absolutely represents and embodies like Aragi's whole thing about like humanity and being a monster and all of that, right? For sure. Um, like entirely so. I don't know how much of that is just Aragi imprinting like that view onto her, right? Like he's like fitting her into a box to like make her like fit that interpretation of her himself, right? Um, Ononoki herself views herself in this interesting way, where she, of course, doesn't view herself as human, and she views herself as a monster in some sense. But I think there's a different context to that than what a monster, what a human is to like Araragi, right? Certainly, certainly. And yeah, I guess I'm just curious. I guess an important thing to me would be seeing if Araragi in the future views Ononoki in a different way, right? Which we've kind of been set up for, haven't we? Considering Ononoki is now at their house, right? After Monogatari, she's at their house now, hanging out with him. They said that the goal, Ogi's goal, basically through all of that, could have been to cause this like chasm between them, right? In their relationship. Why would Ogi want Araragi to view Ononoki as a monster? Well, I guess it's self-explanatory because she so much embodies his idea of what a monster is, right? Being so formed by the people around her and all of this. That of course I guess Ogi would want him to view that in a very negative light. If Guy and Izuko and all of them are successful in Araragi and Ononoki's relationship not being fractured, and him viewing her maybe changing the way he views her, all of this, right? Evolving perspective of her. Who knows? That would be very interesting. I think that would really say something about the way Araragi like views the world at large, right? Because Ononoki is so representative of that whole monster humanity thing. The whole thing that like Ogi like is, right, for Araragi, right? Okay, okay. I guess we got all that figured out. Like not really. It's just Ononoki is still such a complicated character to me. I guess the thing that I'm still just not sure about is just the way Ononoki views herself. I just really I want like an Ononoki arc where she's like the narrator and I can hear what she thinks about herself and the way, you know? Um it just makes me think that the conversation at the beginning of Kabuki Monogatari, when she was talking about like wondering why she even exists, wondering all these very like existential questions about herself and her existence and all of that. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. I wanna know more about her. And I guess we've had an arc named after her, but it was really just an Araragi arc, right? And I guess that's kind of how it is, right? She's an oddity, so we have an arc named after her. Well, she's the oddity in the arc, right? So it's not even. Of course, the focus was just Araragi in a way, but it's so clear that she cares about Araragi. Of course, right? I mean, that's the end of this episode is all about that, right? Is this she cares about him, obviously, right? Of course she does. So it's impossible to say, like, is that just an imitation? Her caring about other people? Would Araragi view it as that? That it's just this adaptation, this imitation, that it's not real, that she's a monster, you know? I certainly hope not, right? I don't view it like that at all. I view Ononoki as someone with the capacity to change in some sense and to care about others and all of this, right? I guess they've said it several times in the story that it's this idea that immortality and being an oddity means you're like unable to change in some way. But I just think if you have the capacity to form relationships, then you will be changed. That's the whole point of the story, right? And all of these oddities in the story that we know, like Ononoki, Shinobu, Skihi, all of them, right? Ogi, right? Have the ability to form relationships. So by definition, I think they have to have the ability to change in some sense, right? Even Skihi, even Ononoki, all of them, right? Okay. Let's actually go through the episode, right? That was the longest like preamble. I mean, that wasn't even a preamble. It's been 20 minutes. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, it's January, so this arc is happening during Hataki End when Kaiki's in town, and that's kind of we have Aragi avoid Kaiki, or rather Kaiki avoid Aragi, because Aragi's the one the flag, right, standing up for Kaiki to see. I really wonder the Kaiki Aragi like thing, right? The way you like can relate Kaiki and Aragi is very interesting. They're similar characters, but it's also weird. It's also been weird for me ever since Hatagi End, because in Hatagi End, it felt like Aragi and Toei were the ones that were so like connected, right? And it was like Kaiki and Nadeko were like the same person, you know what I mean? So now, ever since Kaiki was introduced and he said, "Oh, my name's like a dead tree" or whatever, right? That the key at the end of his name, and Aragi is like tree at the end of his name, right? So Kaiki's the dead tree, right? You want to say that there's like this deep connection between them in some way, but I just wonder, right? Is there even, right? Are they even similar in any way? Could they even be similar? Maybe so, but I don't know. I don't know. We got a shot of Aragi's shadow. I guess Shinobu's in there. I guess, of course, she doesn't come out when Ononoki's around, right? So Ononoki wants to hang out with Aragi. If I turn into a delinquent, how will you take responsibility for it with Oneshan? I guess, is he your father, Ononoki? Does he have to be responsible for you? After escorting Sendagahara back to her place, I was walking home. I see, I see. This is one of those like pedestrian like bridges, right? God, we don't have these in the U.S. That's for sure, right? You gotta walk across the street and hope you don't die. Ononoki gives us some obvious intentional signs here that very clearly mean this body language, these gestures mean I'm currently looking for something. So if you have some time, can you help me look, Oni-chan? Obviously, that's what it means, right? The most obvious thing ever. When you see Ononoki do this a whole bunch, you know, oh yeah, that's what that means. Like, Aragi's really, really messing out, huh? I'd like to help, but to be blunt, the results of the multiple choice test weren't too great. So Aragi is worried. He's worried about his like academic future in a way. We see in Ski Monogatari, him just lying around in bed, not studying, right? And like Karen and Ski, he almost have to like convince him, right? It feels like it almost gets like worse in a way, right? That he this whole like apathy towards it, I wonder, does he think that he's just gonna fail? Does he think it's impossible, right? I wonder, right? Is it in the same vein as like the whole divine punishment thing that he thinks about his life, you know? What were you doing for the past year? Yeah, you've been on this path for a long time, right? You should just die. Thank you, Ononoki. Thank you. To help me with my search, I'll keep insulting you. What is it you're looking for? So, what is it you're looking for around here somewhere? Not necessarily in this area. Right, right. And what we've been looking for, something that you'll know when you see it, is a smile. At least that's Ononoki's. So, God, do I want to talk about that now? No, we'll talk about it in a minute. We'll talk about it in a minute once we get there. I think the idea of that what you're looking for in life is a smile. I think that's a very nice message. That makes a lot of sense, right? It just makes me think about what I've talked about with Aragi so many times, with like how, despite the fact that his life is so much happier and so much better now, right, than it was in Kizu, his mental state, the way he views it, is like really negative and really bad, right? Like especially recently, ever since Hachikuji disappeared, Ogi showed up, all these horror, all the stuff with Nadeko, all, bad things have been happening to him, of course, right? So, like, I understand his attitude towards it now, but I do think saying that, what you're looking for in life is a smile is just is a very good message in a way. It's something Aragi does need to hear, because happiness is kind of an important thing in life in my mind, right? As I'm saying this, I'm thinking back to what Kaiki said in Hitagi End when he told Nadeko that happiness isn't the primary objective of life, and that what matters is being what you want to be. But I remember being like conflicted when he said that to her at the time, and I still am right now, because I feel like for Aragi, I feel like you have to pursue happiness. I feel like you have to, right? If you don't pursue happiness in some way, right, then you're gonna be like Aragi, right? And you can't be like Aragi. But I also see it. I also see it from the perspective of, for Nadeko, she was pursuing happiness in a way because it was easier to be the way that she was then, right? Than it was to pursue what she wanted, and look where that led her, right? So I guess it's one of those questions. One of the questions. It's like the road, right? It's like where your future in life, all of this, where it's impossible to have an answer for it, I guess. There's no easy concrete answer about what you should pursue in life, right? What you should be looking for. Yay. I was told I would know what I'm looking for when I saw it. While I'm searching for something, I want your help to spread my field of vision. So Ononoki, also the other interesting about this episode is this whole like the idea that Ononoki is looking for it, right? That she is the one looking for the smile, looking for the happiness in that case, right? Because it really like humanizes her so much. Not that she needs like humanizing from my point of view, right? Um, but I just wonder if it makes Aragi what it makes Aragi think about her, right? That she, just like everyone else, despite the way that she seems like this monster and all of this, right? That Aragi views her as someone who has hidden herself away and imitates people around her and all of this, right? That she, of course, just like anyone else, maybe despite not having a road that she walks on, there is something she's looking for. There is some goal that she wants in life, which in this case is just a smile, right? Sure, why not? Um, but despite her not having a set path, right, there's always something that she wants, I guess. There's a goal, something that she wants to achieve, which, again, for me, a smile is something that everyone should want to achieve, I suppose, right? So it makes sense. It makes sense, right? So I thought that I needed a change in point of view. As you can see, I'm a treasured doll after all, so I'm a bit short. Right. I can you imagine like sitting like this? How did she even balance like this? This has to be like hard. Like I guess this chair is like pretty stable, right? I suppose. That would be scary. That would be scary. I would not want to do that. I guess because she's so short, that's the only reason she can do it, right? Because like if her torso was like longer, she would like stick more off the chair and then she would fall. But thank God. It's true that my point of view is slightly higher than yours, but that's only relatively speaking. If you're speaking in absolutes, I'm not all that tall either. All this stuff about point of view and field of vision and being tall, all of that, definitely means something. I just don't really know what to say about it. I don't really know in what way you could say that Aragi, like, has a broader field of view than Ononoki, right? Him being human, him having more like connections in life, right? Like what would you say is the difference between him and Ononoki in that way, right? Like if what we're talking about here with looking for something in life, right? You'll know it when you see it, right? Which it doesn't even have to be a smile. It could just be like your goal in life in general, right? Is something that you might know when you see it, right? It's you can set out looking for meaning and purpose in life and all of this, right? Without even knowing what you want, of course. And it's like Aragi wants an answer for that. Aragi wants to know what it is that he should be doing and what he should be looking for, right? In life in general. But no, it's just something you'll know when you see it, right? It's just you'll figure out what you want in your life eventually, right? Hopefully, right? You might have to search, you might have to look for it, right? But there will be something. There will be something to find. There will be something out there, right? So I guess what is it? What do we mean when we say that Aragi has a broader field of vision that he can see further? I don't even know, right? I don't know that his life has more possibility to it than Ononoki's does, right? That his horizons are like broader, right? That he can do more than her just because he's a human, because he has all this possibility in his life, right? Because that I mean that's kind of the thing. That's like the whole thing with Araragi, right? Is because he's a high school student, he's at the end of high school, which is like that's when your life kind of feels like it begins once you're done with high school, right? It feels like there are all of these branching paths in front of you, what you could do with your life, right? That maybe, yeah, your field of vision is so wide, you have such a high vantage point, such a you can see all of these branching paths to go out to, right? I guess that's kind of like what it is, right? That's why Araragi has this broader field of view. That's why he has such a struggle over it, right? That's why he worries so much about his future and what he's looking for in life because yeah, there's so much he can see so much, right? He can see endless possibility. That's why Skihi like flies, right? Because being immortal, being all of that, she has literally like endless possibility in front of her. I suppose. I can see that even from a lower point of view. You're definitely not one of the taller people, I guess. So we're gonna add our height together, which like you can probably take some stuff from, right? Like the two of them, people working together to add their heights together, right? You could kind of say Sendagahara and Aragi have like added their heights together, maybe, right? By like going after a shared like future together in a way, something that both of them alone might not have done. I guess. It's like the connections to people around you open up more, broaden your horizons even more, open up more like possibilities in your future, all of that, more things you can look for. I guess. Certainly like a future with Cindergahara for Aragi. Not carrying her on your shoulders. Absolutely not. Of course, God, even that makes me think, like, because I use that phrase so much, right? Putting weight on your shoulders. Aragi loves to do that. Of course, he immediately thinks, oh, I need to carry her on my shoulders, right? Like, put her on my shoulders. But no, she's gonna carry him, right? She is the one doing something for him, right? Rather than it being the other way around, right? Yeah, yeah. So here we are. How does Araragi balance up there? Like he's not Kaganui. How does he do this? God. Continue to search for whatever it is like this. You'll know what you're looking for when you see it. Does that mean I'd know what it is when I see it too? It's an interesting question, right? Like, God, I kind of feels like it hits at the heart of this, right? Does Aragi like know? Will Aragi know what he wants to do with his life when he sees it, right? Like, I guess that's kind of the underlying worry, right? What if he's already passed it by? What if what he could have or should have done with his life, the path that he should have taken down? What if he didn't know it when he saw it, right? What if he's on the wrong path and it's like it's behind him? But he can't see it anymore because he can only look at what's in front of him, you know? And that's what he says all the time is how he can only see what's in front, right? Everyone kind of only can. So yeah, what if what he should have seen, what he should have known when he saw it? What if it's behind him? That's the worry, right? That's what he worries about. I'm pushing my limits as a vampire lately, so if you're expecting me to have an apparition's eyesight, I can't meet that. God, there's so much. There's so many things, right? The fact that being a vampire expanded like his eyesight, right? Made him be able to see better, the same way that, like, yeah, literally becoming a vampire saved his life, prevented him from killing himself, right? Certainly opened up a lot of new paths and a lot of new things for Aragi to see, right? Like literally. Like, yeah. Not expecting anything from you. She really isn't. Yeah. Of course, Aragi would think that she is, though, right? Even if it's not suspicious, if there's anything that bothers you or you feel strange, that's funny because Ononoki saying that it almost feels like she's being mean, right? That she's insulting him like usual, but she's not. I don't think that's the context of this line at all, right? I think she's literally saying like yeah, she isn't expecting anything from him because Aragi always thinks people are expecting things from him, right? Report every occurrence to me and we're good. Well, he sees himself in the mirror. Oh, that's interesting, right? This is so close to before when he can't see himself anymore, right? That's interesting. That's interesting. Hmm. It's not like I have a lot of free time. You only have 6 months left to live. Less than 6 months, isn't it like 2 or something, right? It's like no time at all, right? Oh God. It's a close call. The college entrance exams will end first, and then the graduation ceremony is in the middle. Find out the results after that, and then his life is over, right? It's so interesting how, like, from an Aragi point of view, even without Nautico, it's almost like that's the way Aragi could view it, right? That it's like if he doesn't know what he's doing with his life, if he doesn't have a path set out for him, if he doesn't know it when he sees it yet, and he doesn't know where he's going with his life and have it figured out, then yeah, his life could just be over, right? Then once he's graduated high school, it's just done. It's just what do I do now? I no longer have a path. I no longer have I'm in the void now. I'm in the darkness, right? The ground crumbles under his feet, the path he was walking on, and it's gone, and he dies, right? Yeah, I mean that's certainly how he could view high school graduation. When you say you've been pushing your limits as a vampire, that's what it entails, right? You're still not only making useless efforts, but suffering useless defeats as well. So I imagine at least what my mind goes to when she says useless defeats is what Aragi's doing with Natiko, right? Going up there every single day and letting her kill him, right? Those are certainly like useless defeats, right? That's what my mind goes to. If she means like other, well, I feel like what she's saying is kind of like coy in a way, right? It's kind of like I think she isn't saying this like literally, right? Like again, it's something that of course comes across as just like an insult towards him, right? But it's not. It's not. I don't think Ononoki views it like this at all. That he's making useless efforts, right? She's almost like making fun of him for like the idea that that's what he's thinking, right? That why is he still trying? Why is he still doing all of this stuff in his life if his life is just going to be over in 2 months, right? Not only just because of Nautico, but just because that's how he views it, right? That's how he views like graduating high school and like his path in life and all of this, right? That he's doomed, that he's down a path of divine punishment, and the universe is out to get him. The darkness is going to destroy him. So why is he even trying? Why is he even doing anything? If he's lost his humanity, he's a monster now. Can't even see himself in the mirror in a month, and all of this. Why even make all of these efforts? Why try anything? I guess it's an interesting question for Ononoki too, right? Because Ononoki, we know that she thinks about and she wonders about like the reason for her existence, why she's alive, why she's around, why she was created. So it's a question for her too. Why does she do anything? Why does she do stuff? Right? Well, for a smile, at the very least, right? That's good enough. It's not necessarily useless. What are you going to do from now on? If you want, I don't mind contacting Gain-san. And of course, Aragi has this horrible justification of, yeah, it's his fault, and he wouldn't. Yeah. Can't ask her for help. I should just die instead. These are the seeds I've sown. I'll do something about it, and that's how he always views it. That's like it's the same thing as like the whole divine punishment thing, and the whole like, yeah, right. Man, he thinks it's this personal responsibility that he has, right? If they really are seeds you've sown, you should indeed do something. Don't you think it's a bit strange that recently only things around you are falling into disarray? As if something is keeping balance. Though meeting an apparition makes you drawn to apparitions, it seems like even that balance is being taken from you. It's very interesting, right? Yeah, it is how his life has just been spiraling downward, partially just because of the way he views it himself, right? Because Ogi, probably, right? Like, and that's kind of an extension of how he views it himself, right? Yeah, that it's all, and I guess what he's lacking is a smile, maybe, right? Maybe it really comes down to that, right? I don't think you're so dense that you wouldn't feel how unnatural it is. I'm dense. I'm always doing everything I can to patch up the current situation. Something you'd know is what you're looking for when you'd see it. Oh god, something you'd know is what you're looking for when you see it. I wonder what that is. Yeah. What is it? Who knows, right? Even if you ask me, I have no idea. Yeah, Ononoki doesn't know either. She doesn't know like where her life is bringing her, what she's doing with her life in the future, right? Where it will lead her, right? Especially if she's underground. But Oni-chan, I sometimes think of what it might be. Yeah. What is it? Something that anyone would know what it is when they see it, but something you lose sight of when you look for it. That's a smile, something you lose sight of when you look for it. What do we mean by that, right? That like once you it's hard to like pursue happiness directly, right? Maybe that's an important factor, right? That happiness is always a secondary objective. I sound like Kaiki now, right? Kaiki was right all along. I'm sorry, Kaiki. Happiness is always a secondary objective, isn't it? Right? You can't just pursue happiness itself. There has to be some kind of conduit, some kind of, thing through which you pursue that happiness. You have to do something with your life, and hopefully that will help you achieve happiness. So yeah, you lose sight of it once you start pursuing it, because if you just pursue happiness in and of itself, well, what are you even doing, right? What are you even doing with your life? You can't just pursue happiness, right? You have to pursue something that you think will bring you happiness, right? You have to pursue, you have to do something, right? I guess that's the important thing, right? Yeah, yeah. A giant duck. Isn't this like a real thing? It is, right? I think I've seen this before, like somewhere, right? In some like river or something. Wandered all over town until sunset, but we couldn't find anything, and nothing was achieved. Interesting. About when I rescued Kumbra and my little sister, been kidnapped by Tadatsuru. Yeah, so this is after Monogatari. And Hanakawa has some stuff to say. I love how much Hanakawa we're getting in these episodes so much. It makes me so happy. Talking about Ononoki-chan's story. So she asks us what the hardest thing to find is, which is something that doesn't exist, right? Sure, right? It's an easy answer. I think the hardest thing to look for, the hardest thing I can think of, it's just the preface to what's the easiest thing to find, right? Of course, I think that would be something you'd know when you see it, except it's not, right? Because that could be anything, right? That thing could be anything, right? That's a lie. Calling it a lie may be a bit too much, but Ononoki-chan wasn't looking for anything, sure. Hardest thing to look for is, well, something of that sort. You can't find something that doesn't exist. So is Araragi looking for something that doesn't exist? I think so, in a way, right? Whatever his, imagined... I guess what he's looking for is, this path, this road for his future, right? The optimal future, right? The being on the correct path in life, right? All of that, right? That is what he's looking for, and that doesn't exist, right? I guess that is that's certainly true, right? That is certainly true. Can it be that Ononoki-chan told such an innocent lie because she wanted to play with me? No. I love getting all these shots of, a Hanakawa traveling around on our journey. The answer is the easiest thing to find. Of course, something easy to find is something that stands out. So what stands out? Nothing stands out more than someone looking for something, right? Or even easier, someone looking for you, right? Something that's going to find you is the easiest thing to find because it's trying to find you, right? Which is very it's interesting to think about that in relation to this idea of your future, your goals in life, all of that, right? What you're pursuing in life, Something that wants to find you. It's a nice way to think about it. It's a nice way to think of it that everyone has some kind of future in life, some kind of path that you will be led down that you're destined for, right? That is trying to find you as well. But I don't know if that's how it works. I suppose the way Hanakawa says it, right, is something looking for something, right? Someone looking for something, right? Something that stands out like that, right? And maybe everyone has something like that in a way, right? Like an opportunity, right? Stopping in your tracks, looking around, bending down, standing on your tiptoes. I love how she went from a hot spring to Tibet to a swamp, a jungle. I don't even know. Where are we? No matter what you do, you end up acting suspiciously, standing on the finger of a girl who looks like a doll and looking for something from so high up. That alone is a rather noticeable act. It sure is. Plan was to make him stand out, so she hoisted you up like a flag. Well, there's someone you weren't supposed to meet, Kaiki, indeed. Someone you weren't supposed to meet, and someone who didn't want to see you either. Then in the end, I did bump into him. Indeed. He was visiting town every day, so yes, if Kaiki saw Ononoki carrying Araragi around, yeah. By making me search for something I couldn't find, she made it easy to find me. What does that line mean? What do we mean by that? Right, on a meta level? I don't know. What does it mean to be easy to be found? From, Araragi's perspective, or, this whole perspective of, what you're looking for in life, right? I don't know, because I guess I just think that you are always the one who's doing the searching, right? But at the same time, I guess you could say it in relation to, people finding you that will, forming relationships with other people, being easy to be found in that way, right? Because Araragi certainly did everything he could to not be easy to find before like Kizu, right? He would push people away. He would be, the way he was with Hanakawa, right? I guess. So that con artist and I wouldn't have had a close encounter. In Inoki-chan's mind, she didn't want you to feel any more anxious than you already did back then. I'm sure. Nothing happening, no incidents, a situation with no story to tell is, surprisingly enough, supported by things like someone's thoughtfulness. Yeah, there's always this, it's very ignorant. It's very silly to imagine that you could even possibly live like the way that Araragi thinks of himself, right? That he thought of himself before Kizu, right? That he was purely human, that he was unsupported by those around him, that he was purely himself and unchanged by anyone, right? Impossible, right? There were always things in life that support you and let you live your life the way you live it, and all of these things, right? The problem, of course, is I think Araragi takes a very negative message from that. I think he takes the idea then that is impossible as like a bad thing, right? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, not realizing that my peaceful life was supported by something, I tried to do something on my own, right? Like Araragi, I think he thinks of it in this very melancholic, like not, I don't know, just very sad way, right? He really beats himself up for it, right? Indeed, a bit humorous. No wonder she ridiculed me, right? Like, yeah, he just thinks of it as very like existentially, like, that he's just been on the wrong path with just the way he thinks. People just help themselves out on their own is a great phrase, but in reality, it's impossible to live all on your own. Of course, yeah. Normally, you don't think about stuff like that at all when living your everyday life. Yeah, you really don't. I mean, there's so many things that come together, right? Sure. Perhaps such nonchalant acts of thoughtfulness are the hardest things to find. I suppose, right? That's what you need. That's what you need in life, right? It's been a struggle for Aragi to find things like that, but he has a lot of people like that now. It just depends what he's gonna do with it, what he's gonna do with all of those paths that are open to him, right? Okay, well that was a good one. That was a good one. Hmm, I don't know. Anything else I want to say about it? Ononoki. I need Ononoki narrator. That's what I need. That's what I need in my life. I don't know if that's ever gonna happen. Have we ever had an oddity be a narrator before? No, right? Who have we had? We've had Aragi, Hanakawa, Kanbaru, Nadeko, kinda Nadeko at the end of Nadeko Medusa when she was the god, right? I guess that was kind of like having an oddity narrator in a way. Um, hmm. Kaiki. Maybe Kaiki's secretly an oddity. Who knows? Okay. I guess that is it. So, if you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think, and I will see you in the next one.